Aaron. So I want to start my response with an anecdote. Years ago, I was the regional teacher of the year in our state, which means I was one of the top 8 educators. And as a part of that position, I was offered lots of jobs beyond the classroom. And I can remember I was in a conversation with one person who wanted me to come and work for them, and they said, well, hey, I don't understand why you wouldn't want this job. Like, why don't you want the opportunity to move up? And that was a really interesting moment for me, because in that person's eyes, it was a person that was already working beyond the classroom, the idea of leaving the classroom meant moving up. And that implies a hierarchy. Now, education's full of hierarchies. In fact, we're governed by them, right? And as people move up in the hierarchy, they gain more organizational power. And along with that organizational power, sometimes comes the assumption that people beyond the classroom somehow know more, that their decisions are right because of their expertise and because of their know-how. And they wouldn't have gotten into the position that they were in if they didn't have some kind of extra know-how or knowledge that led to the making of right decisions. Along with that comes the impression that if a person hasn't moved up in education, if they've chosen to stay in the classroom, that if you're somehow lower on the hierarchy, that you have less expertise or less know-how and therefore less right to challenge the dogmas in education. And I think that's dangerous. I think that's one of the reasons why school systems fail to move forward, is we don't oftentimes listen to the expertise of the people who are beneath us on the organizational depth chart, for lack of a better phrase. And I think that the best school leaders recognize that expertise comes from everywhere within an organization. However, traditionally, that's just not how we've seen expertise in education. Expertise comes from the people who are beyond the classroom, not the people who are in the classroom. Now, as far as the formal and informal sanctions that come towards people who question dogmas in education, that's very real. And it has an influence on educators. Like, as a classroom teacher, I'm less likely to challenge practices that were introduced to me, whether I think those practices are right or wrong, simply because I realize that I don't have the organizational juice to change any of those practices. In the end, what I think matters doesn't really matter. It's what the people above me think matters. So it's gotten to the point after 27 years where I oftentimes don't even bother to change practices, even if I don't believe in them. And what's really frightening about all of this is that people who make decisions and want those decisions to be implemented still don't evaluate or observe those decisions in action terribly often. So what I've realized as a classroom teacher is if there's a dogma that I don't believe in, I just close my door and teach. There's still a lot of power in the doorknob. I can make individual decisions within my classroom most of the time without those individual decisions being challenged. You said in your video that you thought we needed to get to the point in education where we were comfortable with being questioned and where it became an accepted norm in our profession to challenge things that we weren't sure about. And I couldn't agree with you more. I just don't see it happening anytime soon because our school system is such a hierarchical organization. Any of this make sense?